Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the Mr. Douglas Sports Show. I am your host as always, Corey Douglas. And I'm going to go ahead and get this episode kicked off. And I'm going to get it tipped off with Paul Pierce making headlines for getting fired by ESPN over the past week. Last weekend he decided that he was going to go on Instagram Live. And he was hosting a poker party, it looked like. There was looks like some weed involved. There were some strippers involved. Obviously some alcohol involved. And, he was obviously having a good time. Well, ESPN said, all right, we're getting you out of here. They fired him this week by parting ways. And I have to be honest with you, I was a little bit surprised that they took it to that level. I thought maybe a suspension was in line. Maybe a couple of weeks, just go away, maybe for a month. But no, they got him out of here, and to me, I felt like it was maybe something that was already kind of in the works, and maybe ESPN was looking for a way to get to part ways anyway. And I think that had a lot to do with Paul Pierce wasn't really that good as a TV analyst. So I think ESPN was looking at this as an excuse to get him out of here. Now there is reports circulating that he could maybe be heading to Barstool, which wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world because Barstool is in Massachusetts. Obviously, Paul Pierce played the majority of his career in Boston, won one championship in Boston. But yeah, that's Paul Pierce making the headlines last weekend by going on Instagram Live, wasted at a poker party that he was hosting. All right, so that's Paul Pierce getting fired from ESPN. But I also want to stick on something else that came out on ESPN this weekend or this week. And that is the top 25 players under the age of 25. Because this list got a lot of attention this week. Because Trae Young was ranked 16th on this list. And Trae Young took to Twitter on this and he posted a tweet saying, "A lion never loses sleep over the opinions of sheep." So obviously Trae Young was not very happy. So I want to take a look at this list just to see if his gripe is warranted or if, he was slotted correctly at being 16 on this list. So let me go ahead and pull up the list real quick and we'll just dive right into that and see should he be mad or should he not be mad. So let's go ahead and give me just a second and I will pull this up. So number one, obviously Luka is number one. I don't think there's any argument there. Luka is better than Trae Young now, and I think Luka's only going up. They have Zion number two, and with how quick he's acclimated to the NBA game, I don't see an argument there on Trae Young's behalf. Number three, they have LaMelo Ball. For LaMelo Ball, his biggest, question mark in his game right now is obviously his shot. The playmaking, rebounding, and scoring is there. I think there can be an argument made that Trae Young has a better future than LaMelo Ball. But obviously LaMelo Ball has that potential to, if he ever knocks down his shot, he's going to be in that same realm of, posting a bunch of triple-doubles. And he's going to impact winning more than Trae Young. Number four, Donovan Mitchell. He's been doing this for now 4 years. This year he's averaging 26, 5, and 4. I think the biggest knock on Donovan Mitchell is that he doesn't affect winning outside of scoring as far as like rebounding, assists, steals, things of that nature. But I think that's fair having him up in the top 5. Number 5 is Jason Tatum. Same thing as Donovan Mitchell. He's been in this game for, 3 or 4 years at this point. And, he's only 23. And I think he impacts winning more than Trae Young. And again, this is based off potential. Number 6, De'Aaron Fox. He's been going crazy this year. But I think there's an argument that Trae Young has a better future than De'Aaron Fox as well. Both of them have kind of been in the same boat as far as not making the playoffs and not impacting winning as much as some of the guys previously mentioned. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is tough for me because this is a player that's come into the league, and obviously the playmaking, the rebounding, and the ability to get to the basket has always been there in his game. That's not going anywhere. But the problem I have with Ben Simmons is that he has not elevated his game as far as an offensive standpoint. He still is not willing to shoot the basketball, and I think it really hurts Philadelphia in the playoffs once they get to that point. But obviously he's one of the top, if not the best defensive player in the league. So, he's still obviously a very effective player. Number 8, Devin Booker. He's having, to me, what seems like a quiet season. Obviously, they're the number 2 seed in the West right now. So they're winning this year. The addition of Chris Paul has been huge for them. Additions to Jay Crowder also helped. But I feel like he's having a little bit under the radar. But obviously, he can still drop 30 or 40 on any given night. Bam Adebayo. I like his all-around game, offensively, defensively. And I think his next step to really take his game to the next level is to really I want him to be more aggressive. I think playing in that Miami system, I think him and Jimmy Butler kind of have this same type of, I'm going to lay low and let get my teammates involved. But when it's winning time, I need to see Bam take that jump and be like, yo, give me the ball. I'm going to go get this bucket to win this game. So I don't have a problem with him being above Trae Young. Number 10, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Obviously, he's in the OKC Thunder right now. So there's not a whole lot of winning right now. They're rebuilding. But this dude is cold. And I don't have a problem, when you look at the future, I don't have a problem with him being above Trae Young. B.I., Brandon Ingram at number 11. This is a guy that was deemed the next KD when he first came into the league. Got off to a bit of a quiet start with the Lakers. But there was a lot going on there. They had a bunch of young players, but his career the last couple of years has really blossomed. I have no problem with him being above Trae Young. Number 12, Jaylen Brown. First-time All-Star this year. He's taking his game to the next level. Playing alongside another, obviously, top 5 player under the age of 25 in the league. I really like what he's doing. And I think I don't have a problem with him being above Trae Young either. Number 13, Jamal Murray. We saw what he did in the bubble in the playoffs. This year has kind of been really up and down for him. I don't think he's a star level player at this point as to where I think Trae Young is. And I don't know how much better Jamal Murray is going to get at this point. So I think Trae Young has a beef there. Number 14, Michael Porter Jr. Now this is a guy that dropped to the Nuggets in the draft because of some injury concerns. He still hasn't reached his full potential at this point, but if he does, I have no problem with him being above Trae Young. Number 15, Ja Morant. This is a guy that he impacts winning. Say what you will about the numbers, because the numbers are kind of shaky. I really thought he was going to take that next step at the beginning of the season before his injury. Since his injury, he hasn't really been the same all the way. So I think him and Trae Young are kind of in that same thing. Obviously, Trae Young is going to have the better numbers right now, averaging almost 30 a game, almost 10 assists. But Ja is cold, and we're talking about future, so I don't really have a problem with him being above Trae Young. So that is the top 15 of this list. And I have to say, I don't think Trae Young has a real beef here. There's a lot of young talent in this league. I think a lot of players and a lot of people around the NBA would say this is probably the most talented the league has ever been. And I think I agree with that. And Trae Young, look, once you start impacting winning more so than you are, and plus you're in the Eastern Conference, then you'll start getting some of that love and recognition. But I still don't think 16th, like I said, with the talent that's in the league right now, I don't think being 16th is a slight at Trae Young. But I think it's to kind of elevate the other young players that are in this league right now. So that's that on that. Trae Young, just calm down a little bit. You're all right. You're still getting mad love. And obviously Trae Young's going to draw the comparison to Luka. Luka's obviously a bona fide top 5 player, and Trae Young is not at that level at this point. Staying in the NBA, I just mentioned Luka, so let's go ahead and talk about the Dallas Mavericks week in review. Starting last Friday, they played 5 games in 7 nights. They go 4-1 during that stretch. So let's go ahead and break down game by game. Of course, they started last Friday in New York in the Big Apple, Madison Square Garden. KP returns to New York. And I got to say, from this game, I learned a lot about some of these players when they go into these kind of hostile environments where you're getting, heckled with. The fans don't like you. They're letting you know how much they don't like you. And I like to see how guys respond to this. And in this game, KP, I didn't like what I saw from him. He goes 6 of 17 from the field. He scores only 14 points, grabs 8 boards, 3 turnovers. And I saw in this game where KP kind of got in his head. The fans got in his head really early in this game, and it affected him as far as he was trying to do too much out there on the court. He was forcing up bad shots. He was you could tell he was feeling it. I don't think Luka had his best game, but Luka ended up with 26, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists on 11 of 23 shooting, 3 of 8 from 3. So overall, they win. The Mavs won 99-86. And aside from the KP, another, angle I took from this game was I wanted to see how the Mavs responded to this physical New York Knicks team. Under Tom Thibodeau, the Knicks have been one of the best teams in the NBA defensively all season. So I wanted to see how the Mavericks would respond to that. And they got down 13 in the second quarter, but they immediately closed that gap before halftime and actually went into halftime up by 1. So I really liked the way they responded. But other than that, I didn't really have too much to take away from that game. So let's go ahead and move on to the next night. They had a back-to-back in Washington. So at this point, as a Mavs follower, fan, someone that covers the team in some capacity, you always have to wonder, all right, which guys are not going to play on back-to-backs, which guys are going to play on back-to-backs. So this is one that Luka did play on a back-to-back. KP sat out, and they described it as a wrist injury. We'll talk about that a little further because that story's kind of went everywhere since this game. But also out on that Saturday night was Maxi Kleber. So in this game, the Mavs win 109-87. Luka comes back with 26 points on 12 of 24 shooting. His 3-ball wasn't dropping, going 1 of 8 there, but he added 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Boban had 15 and 12. And Boban's an interesting player because it seems like every time he plays, he affects the game in some type of way. He's going to get you a double-double because, obviously he's 7'6", 7'7". He's also frustrating to watch for a 7-footer. I think the Mavs, they have the worst finishing 7-footers in basketball. Kawhis, Dwight Powell, Boban, they all miss bunnies around the rim. It's really frustrating. But Jalen Brunson comes off the bench with 19. Hardaway goes into the starting lineup. Didn't have a great shooting night. 6 of 19. 16 points total. But the Mavs come away with the win without KP. Next up, they return home after the 5-game road trip. And they take on the best team in the NBA, the Utah Jazz. We find out before the game that KP is not going to play due to a wrist injury. There was no timetable on his return, and so at that question, your antennas go up when it's revolving KP and an injury. So he doesn't play that game. The Mavs win by 8, and they pretty much control the game. And I think the story of this game was the Mavs defense. I think you got to give Josh Richardson and Dorian Finney-Smith a lot of credit, holding Donovan Mitchell to 6 of 23 shooting, only 16 points. He had 5 rebounds, 4 assists, but then Luka on the other side has 31, 9, and 8. Didn't shoot the ball particularly well overall, but he did go 6 of 11 from 3. And Jalen Brunson added 20 off the bench. Hardaway added 16 off the bench. Finney-Smith got a bunch of looks because when the Mavs match up against Utah, the Utah Jazz will put Rudy Gobert on Finney-Smith. I liked a lot of the actions that Carlisle did to combat that in this matchup. Basically putting Finney-Smith in the screen game, having him drop back. He got a lot of wide open threes. So it led to Finney-Smith's second time scoring 23 points as a career high. 5 of 12 from 3. And obviously, like I said, this game was without KP due to a wrist injury. But this was the best win of the season for the Mavs to this point. They're really on Portland's tail right now. Portland, as entering a really tough part of their schedule. So it's not out of the question that the Mavs could pass them. But now I have to go to what was the most disappointing loss probably of the year when they traveled to Houston. We find out on Tuesday before the game. The game was on Wednesday in Houston, but on Tuesday we find out that KP is expected to travel and play in that game. So yeah, we find out KP is going to play against Houston. So you're thinking, all right, so we're getting our 7-3 unicorn back out there, and you could just tell from the very start of the game, the energy wasn't there. I don't know if it was a bit of a trap game based off coming off your best win of the season against the best team in the league and then having to play Milwaukee the next night. But whatever it was, the Mavs did not have it in this game. But still, yeah, in the fourth quarter, they found themselves tied at 89. And the story, aside from this being the worst loss of the Mavericks season, came with KP's postgame after he did not get a shot attempt in the fourth quarter. So I want to spend a little bit of time with that because I've been a big proponent, I guess, of the Luka KP dynamic not really seeming all that great. And, you know, there's from KP's comments to, you know, the ball moves better without, you know, Luka out there on the court versus just he feels like he's not being involved in the offense, to earlier in the year when the minutes wasn't getting the minutes he wanted. He felt like he needed to play in longer stretches, so he called out the coaching staff. So there's been a lot going on that led up to this point, I think, for KP. And I think KP has been wanting for so long to kind of speak out on that. And he kind of did that on Wednesday night against Houston after the game, after he did not get a shot attempt in the fourth quarter. So basically he was asked, you know, kind of what are your thoughts on not getting a shot attempt in the fourth quarter? And he was like, well, you know, it's kind of the plays we're calling. And then he kind of mumbled. He was scratching his ear. He, you know, said, good question. And then he tops it off with, it's happened before. And that's the comment that stuck out to me before because, like I said, all those events that I mentioned a few minutes ago are things that are leading up to KP. KP's frustration. And I have to say, I understand it because Luka had his worst game of the season probably against Houston that night. And there were several times where Luka just blatantly looked off KP when KP was just open. There's one, I guess, play in particular that really sticks out to me. And that's with Luka on the right wing. He has a defender on him. KP's coming up the court in the middle, you know, lined up, dead wide open for three because KP's defender dropped it back into the paint. So, I mean, he's at least 4 feet behind the line, and the guy that's supposed to be guarding KP has his feet in the paint. So, the easy pass is just, hey, Luka, just give it over to KP, let him shoot. Whether he makes or miss it, that's the right basketball play. Well, Luka did not make the right basketball play there. He decided to take on his defender, try to get to the basket. And I mentioned KP's defender was already in the paint, so there's not really a direct lane for Luka to get to a spot to where he can make a good basketball play. Well, he ends up, I don't remember if he missed the shot or turned the ball over, but one of the two things happened. And you can kind of see KP's body language at that point was bad. And I think it just, all of this led up to it in the game. And the rebounding wasn't there for KP. Kelly Olynyk for Houston, who averaged 6 boards a game, had 18. And it was just an all-around just uneven performance for the Dallas Mavericks coming off the best win of the season. So then Thursday, they play Milwaukee. And the storyline for me heading into this game was, all right, so how is the Luka KP dynamic going to be? And before the game, they do the pregame warm-ups. Luka gets his name called after KP because obviously the best player gets the name called last in these pregame player introductions. And, you know, Luka's giving high fives to everybody, and KP just walks off. So the high fives, the tension's there in the building. And this is something that I can't really, I don't know what's taking the national media or like the local media that's actually has more access than I do personally to ask about this. But they finally asked about it after this Milwaukee game. This was a great game for the Mavs to bounce back against Houston. Obviously, the Greek Freak, Giannis, did not play in this game. But again, the defense was the the thing that stood out to me the most. Typically when Giannis is out, Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton, obviously they're next in line and they take on a bigger role. So I was really concerned about kind of, how would the Mavs match up against Chris Middleton and Jrue Holiday. The Mavs lost to the Bucks earlier this season, but the defense by Josh Richardson and Dorian Finney-Smith again on both of these guys really stood out. In this game, Chris Middleton shot 6 of 27, 14 points. He had 8 rebounds, 3 assists, but Jrue Holiday, he had a very quiet night, going 6 of 16, 13 points, only 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and overall the Bucks shot 38% from the field, 12 of 33 from 3, which is 36%, which is not bad in the NBA. But it was a good win for the Mavs. And I wanted to see the Luka KP dynamic on the court because, like I mentioned before the game, they didn't shake hands, and there's very little interaction between Luka and KP. If you watch a lot of Mavs games, you won't see them interact a whole lot. Whether it's Luka giving a pass to KP, KP knocks down the shot, they kind of just head up down the court, don't really acknowledge each other. So that's what really tipped off me to really paying attention to whoa, these guys really might not like each other, which is really strange to me because just in the bubble, KP against the Clippers in game 1 of the playoff matchup against the Clippers, KP gets ejected for standing up for Luka when Marcus Morris was pulling, his type of dirty stuff that he does. But I would say KP responded in this game. He had 26 points, 17 rebounds. He had 11 points in the fourth quarter. And more so than the numbers for KP is I really liked his activity on the boards. He had a real crucial play in the third quarter where a shot was missed. He chases the ball down, saves the ball from going out of bounds to a teammate. It leads to I believe a Josh Richardson layup. So those are the kind of plays that I think can get KP involved because obviously Luka's the offense that the Mavs run, for better or for worse, it's going to run through Luka, and it's up to Luka to make the right play. So I need Luka to stop being as petty in some of these situations where I think he would force feed guys like Boban and Melly, that just a new acquisition. He feeds Melly. Get KP some looks. And more so than putting the blame on Luka, the rest of the team has to find KP, I think, sooner in some situations. There's situations where Josh Richardson, Jalen Brunson, Hardaway, they don't make the pass either on time, on target, or they just don't make the pass at all, end up taking a bad shot, missing it when KP could get a decent look near the paint. Obviously, it's kind of hit and miss, I think, with KP because smaller defenders do bother him. So I think that's part of it. But the whole Luka KP dynamic is just really fascinating to watch during games. And I hope they can figure it out, but my gut feeling at this point is that KP is not a Dallas Maverick next year. I think there's a lot of rumblings around Golden State really after him. They were after him before the trade deadline, and now they're expected to pursue him again during the offseason. Whether it's Golden State or somewhere else, I don't think KP will be back. But staying on this year, let's go back. The Mavs are now 20-8 since starting the season 9-14. I mentioned they're right there on the heels of Portland for the 6th seed. They are a game behind them now. So over the last 15 games, the Mavs are 3rd in the NBA in net rating. They are 5th in the league in defensive rating, and they are 6th in the league in offensive rating. So it appears that the Mavs are kind of shifting into that team that I thought they would be before the season. Now, obviously, they've had a whole bunch of stuff go wrong this season, and they're still wildly inconsistent in some aspects of the game, especially offensively. I mentioned the impact Josh Richardson has on defense most nights, but the impact on offense that he has in a positive way is not there all the time. It's a really frustrating watch. In the Houston game, he puts up 1 whole point, and in the game against Utah, he hits 5 threes. So it's so hit and miss. He can score 25 in one game. Next game, he'll come back with 4, 6, or just the 1 point he put out in Houston. But overall, I'm okay with where their Mavs are right now. I think as we get closer to the playoffs, I'll start pinpointing on like who I might want the Mavs to see. Obviously, I don't want to see a healthy Lakers team in the playoffs. So if we can avoid that matchup, like I said, I'll kind of narrow it down and see maybe if I can pinpoint who I want the Mavs to play with in a playoff series. That's all I have for the NBA. I do want to get one quick note on the NFL real quick because this is another story that made a lot of headlines this week, and that is the NFL possibly going to a rule where NFL players like receivers, running backs, they can wear numbers in the single digits. And there's been a lot of talk about Jalen Smith wanting to wear number 9. He wore that number in college. I believe he wore it in high school. And there's a lot of Cowboys fans, a lot of Romo fans that are unhappy with that because let's face it, Jalen Smith is not really a good player at this point. And Romo is loved by a lot of Cowboys fans. My take on it is I don't really care about the numbers. If you look at who's worn 54, a better player who's worn 54 with Randy White than number 9, Tony Romo. And then you look at the 88s, and just the Cowboys make a living off of staying in the tradition. And the tradition is not really to retire numbers. So, like I said, I don't really have a problem with Jalen Smith wearing number 9. I more so care about his play on the field. But like at the end of the day, it's a number, and the Cowboys have shown they don't really care about the numbers. It is interesting to see maybe if Jerry Jones would feel some type of way because Romo is basically like family to them. But it would be interesting to see if the rule gets passed, first of all, and then second of all, if Jalen Smith really does pursue the number 9. That's going to do it for this episode of the Mr. Douglass Sports Show. I'm getting out of here. Until next week, salute.